Welcome to Face the Analyst. I am your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm here with David Wolfin. David Wolfin is the president and CEO of Avino Silver and Gold Mines. It trades on the Toronto Exchange under the symbol ASM. It's got approximately 26 million shares of stock outstanding, recently trading at around $2.50 a share, giving it a market cap in the $55 to $60 million range. Welcome, David, to Face the Analyst.
Thank you, Jay.
Really a pleasure to have you. I've known your father for many years. Your dad told me about the Avino mine in Mexico. In fact, I know that you have produced silver and gold and other metals from that mine over the last number of years. And that mine has a really rich, lengthy history. Could you give our viewers just a little sense of the history of Avino, both prior to, before you owned the property, as well as more recently?
Okay. Well, the history of Avino dates back to the 1500s. Francisco Ibarra of Cortez's army found the mine in the 1500s, and it was probably about the 10th mine they found when the Spaniards came over. And there's been a history of mining on and off for 500 years. In the 1800s, the British owned it. It was the largest open cut mine in the world at that particular time. And we got involved in the late 60s. We found out about it, started Avino, and we looked for mines that closed around the time of the Revolution, and we found Avino.
Okay, now we're talking 1960s, I assume.
Yes.
Okay, so that was the lengthy history. How long has Avino, so Avino has put the mine into production. How much metal has been produced by Avino?
From 1974 to 2001, we produced 16 million ounces of silver, 100,000 ounces of gold, and about 20 million pounds of copper.
Okay, well that's history. I mean, investors today might be interested in history, but they're interested also in making money and knowing whether or not they can do so with your company. Talk to us a little bit about the future. What are you doing now there? First, before we get to the future, what are you doing now? Are you in production? You're producing on a limited scale?
Yeah, we started up the mill in August 2010, and we are in ramp-up phase right now. We're running what we call a bulk sample, so we can determine the economics for the public. But internally, we know it's going to be positive because we're seeing the numbers as it happens every day.
Okay, so we're looking at silver prices, which have been as high as $30 or so. This mine has had a history. Can you tell us what the cost of production might have been in the past?
In the past, it was between $3 to $5 US per ounce. We're anticipating between 6 and 8, but probably no more than 10.
Okay, so if you have a $10 silver price, obviously $20 to $30 silver price, a $10 cost, you're going to make some money. You would think, how much silver do you think you can produce annually?
Based on the current rate, we anticipate about 1.1 million silver equivalent ounces annually.
1.1 million. So people that can use their calculators to figure out what the cash flow might be at various levels of production and prices for silver. Of course, you will really know what your cost of production is once you're in production on a regular basis. I believe, David, you told me that you're looking at something like 250 tons per day operation, but if I understand, you can also ramp up considerably further if you're able to pull sufficient amount of mill feed from the mine. Talk to us a little bit about the future and what you might be able to do going forward.
Well, the mill the ultimate capacity is about 1,250 tons per day. So there's a lot of room for expansion, but obviously that's a big mouth to feed, so you have to find the ore to fill it. Currently, we start drilling in about a week or so, and we've got a major drilling campaign to find more resources and reserves. We have the old Avino mine that we can dewater and go back into, and we're doing a mine plan there, and that could almost double the production. And then we have a tailings pond with collectively about 10 million ounces of silver in there, 6 million in the oxides, and about 3.5 million in the sulfides, with about 90,000 ounces of gold. We have a scoping study on leaching the oxides. So there's two major areas where we can increase the production.
Increase gold production. So the Avino mine, is it going to cost you much to get this back into production, or basically things are pretty much in place?
We've already spent the money to get it where we are today. We don't owe any money. We have about $9 million in the bank, and we're going to get positive cash flow from this bulk sample and going forward. So we don't see a need to raise any money at the moment. But if we go into expansion mode, there might be a time where we might need more money down the road.
Now, David, this is an underground mine, right, that you're talking about. You had an open cut mine you just referred to. Would that be open pit production if you were to put that back into production?
No.
No, it would all be underground.
Underground.
Okay. So I guess the big question in my mind is, how much ore can you pull? How much tonnage can you pull from the mine? Because if you're an underground mine, obviously there are restrictions to how much you can pull out. Do you have a sense?
Well, in San Gonzalo, depends on how many tunnels you put in. Right now we've got 2, and we can draw out enough to feed a 250 ton a day operation.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to, instead of going to 1,250 tons a day, if we want to jump from 250 to 500, we have that opportunity as well. So we have other smaller ball mills, so we don't have to jump to the maximum capacity right away.
Mm-hmm. Silver mining, certainly there are more and more silver mines now coming into production. There are some peers that you have in Mexico. Talk to us a little bit about your valuation vis-a-vis some of the peers, if you could.
Well, I look at Endeavor. They're producing about 4.1 million ounces of silver equivalent, and they have a 560 million market cap. So we're going to do about a quarter of that in our first year of operation, and hopefully our market cap reflects that at that time.
So as we mentioned, your market cap currently is around $55 million or so.
Yeah.
There would seem to be some upside potential there at current levels of production. What do you think the biggest risk that investors might face who buy your shares at their current price?
The biggest risk would be metal prices. Yeah. If we go back to when the tech bubble happened and silver was below $3 an ounce, or around $3, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, it's a little difficult for me to see that as well.
All the infrastructure's in place. It's paved right to the doorstep. You can get to the mine in under an hour from the airport in Durango. There's 2 villages nearby to draw labor from. So we don't have to duplicate all that. So there's not a big capital cost. It's already there.
And there's no debt attached to the mine. And you don't have any hedging then that is forcing you to sell silver at $10 or $12 or something like that.
No,
like
we've taken a conservative approach, and we have avoided any debt unless you can service it, so that we don't have any plans to take on any debt at the moment.
David, you know, there's probably hundreds of other junior mining companies out there. Most of them are probably not as far along as you are, because you've been a producer and you're on the verge of producing once again. But how do why should investors take a look at your company as opposed to hundreds of others?
Well, you look at our experience, our past experience. We're capable of mining. We've proven that. The location of the property is in a mining-friendly jurisdiction. We've got a good backer in Sprott Management. They've come in and they're our largest shareholders. So we're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, and that we think it's a great little company.
Is there anything else you think our viewers should be aware of before we conclude our discussion? Any other?
Another thing that we want to do this year is upgrade the listings. We're going to graduate, hopefully, to the Toronto Stock Exchange and the Amex New York Exchange.
No, that would be, that would be helpful. Certainly would give you broader coverage and larger numbers of mutual funds and so forth that could buy your stock. It really is an interesting story. I think it's certainly, you know, the metallurgy, you have infrastructure in place, you don't have a lot of the risks that a lot of the other junior mining companies have. It's really a story that's been around for a while, but we haven't had $30 silver most of that time. We've never had it really. $50 silver in 1980, and then we went down to, as you say, $3, $4 or whatever. So it really is an interesting story. I wish you all the best in the world, and your father as well. Tell him I said hello, and
Thank you very much.
all the best to you and your family. And you're providing a lot of employment for people, doing a good thing in Mexico from what I can see. So I wish you all the best, David.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure seeing you again and talking to you.
Okay, thank you.